is that when I was 16, I decided that I was trans. I'm probably one of the oldest people to have had the experience of stumbling on trans stuff on the internet and then self-diagnosing. I did that back when it was all message boards, and I was determined to pursue transition. It's not a decision that my family or anyone else made for me. I take accountability for the mistakes I made. And what ended up happening is I took testosterone on and off because I was so dysfunctional. But I took testosterone for a few years, and I had 2 botched surgeries on my chest. And immediately after the second one, the denial that I had been in for the last few years just fell apart, and I was faced with the fact that I was living a lie and that I just couldn't do it anymore. But at that point, nobody was talking about detransition, and I was alone with this problem, and I just started using drugs and ran away from everyone that I knew. I had spent the last, almost a decade trying to force all my friends and family to obey my rules and cutting people out who didn't. Where I really feel like something needs to be done is this thing with the transgender children, because this is child abuse, and I don't really know what to do, since apparently talking about that is considered like the equivalent of, being like a Nazi or something. But it's actually the opposite, because sterilizing people against their will is exactly what the Nazis did. And children don't have a free will. They don't understand anything. If you tell children that Santa Claus is real, they believe that. If you tell them they can change their sex, they believe that. And it's eugenics. It's eugenics. And I'm a psychiatric survivor. I was diagnosed with a whole bunch of disorders that I don't really have when I was a child because I didn't fit in. And I was put on a bunch of medication, and I'm sure that played a role in why I was so disassociated from my body as an adolescent that I believed that I was trans. And another part of that was that because I had felt so disempowered by my experiences with doctors, when I discovered trans, I felt like I was turning the tables on them. It was this false sense of empowerment, like I was calling the shots. But the reality is that, I'm a woman, and I'm different. And, in the 19th century and, the 20th century, women like me were forcibly sterilized, not just by the Nazis, but also in the United States, and in Britain, and, all over the place. This is going on. And then, as a society, we finally stopped doing that. And now it's happening again. But with this illusion, this cult of free will that says that people are choosing it. And people who have been harmed by the trans medical industry the most are usually not in a position to be able to talk about what they've experienced. And so, and some of these people are totally isolated, and some of these people have reached out to me for help, and I haven't really been able to help them very much, unfortunately. But, I don't feel like I can be silent about this. I mean, there's people who, can't detransition because they have, damaged their bodies so badly through the trans medical interventions that, for instance, apparently, a lot of, people who've had, like, phalloplasties, if they try to get off of testosterone and get on estrogen so that their body would theoretically be healthier, because that is the hormone that their body is evolved to be dealing with, then it causes the problems with the phalloplasty, which they would probably have to have surgery to remove it in order to deal with. And for a lot of people, that's not something they want to put themselves through, and I can understand it. So that's something that no one's talking about, because if you're someone who's actually experiencing that, it's so hard to deal with that you don't want to talk about it. So, if I know about this stuff's going on and I can't talk about it, and the people who are experiencing it can't talk about it, then no one's going to talk about it. So I feel like I kind of have to talk about it. And, there's also a lot of people who've contacted me who want to detransition, but they don't feel like they can because they wouldn't be able to pass as their own actual sex, and their lives would be really hard. And I can relate to that because I'm frequently mistaken for a trans woman. It even happened while I was pregnant. But in comparison to someone who has, male pattern baldness and, thick body hair, I'm able to pass relatively well as a female, without a lot of effort. And, I'm somebody who was never interested in doing a lot of, grooming to make myself look more feminine. And I can't imagine if I was someone who would have to wear a wig and would have to go through, extensive electrolysis and all this stuff to try to just be able to socially go out and pass as female. Would I have decided to do that, or would I have felt trapped in continuing to live as a trans man because of that? And so I'm in a position of privilege, and people who have less privilege are usually not talking about the ways that the trans medical system has harmed them. But, I feel like I have to talk about these things. It's like, I don't feel like I shouldn't talk about them, or I'm not allowed to. I feel like I have to, because no one's gonna speak up about this stuff otherwise. There are also people who, including people who are very young and, have only been on hormones for a relatively short amount of time, haven't had surgery yet, or haven't had all the surgery that they're planning on getting, who, are questioning their transition and, wanting to detransition, but they feel like they can't because they would let down their friends and family. And that's pretty heartbreaking. And that's what you get from the whole, affirmation, model, and the whole, triumphal narrative. And that was actually something that affected me. I mean, I could have detransitioned earlier and gotten out with less harm to my body. And I didn't feel like I could because I felt like I'd lose face. Even going into my first chest surgery, which was botched, and led to my second chest surgery, which was also botched, which did a lot of damage to my body. I was feeling very conflicted, and not conflicted about identifying as male, but conflicted about, do I want to do something so drastic to my body, And I wish now that I had listened to that and I had taken a step back, but I didn't. And part of the reason I didn't was because I felt like it would be letting other people down, which is crazy. But it's okay to have regret and still have self-acceptance, and that's possible, And I think some people, they feel like it's not, so they kind of go then to the other side. They feel like they can't say that they regret, let's say, having a mastectomy, because if they did, then they'd be being like a victim, or then it would be maybe transphobic or something if there's still people who are worried about offending transgender people. So they have to say, oh, well, this was part of my self-discovery, this was fine, this was great, this wasn't bad,